All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m., 7:07 p.m. and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Amanda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Presentations. Start with the recognition of Officer Karkoff.
Good evening, council. Guests, if I could have Officer Karkoff step up here, please. You remember this tall, good-looking gentleman here? Him. Yeah. Anyways, part of our culture is to acknowledge employees that have been with us and provided incredible customer service to our citizens. And this guy is no exception. So even though he left for a different department, not a wise choice in my opinion, but you know, what can you do? We want to take time and acknowledge his contributions to our community and protecting them. So with that, Officer Brenton Karkoff started as a full-time police officer for the city of Elko, New Market in April of 2020. During his almost 3 years with our department, he made many contributions, including, but not limited to, overseeing our department's equipment and uniform purchases as the department's quartermaster, maintaining and certifying the department's alcohol testing machine along with the portable breath testers, training officers as a field training officer where he was responsible for teaching our new officers policy and procedure for our department, and performing Towards Zero Death TZD enforcement scheduling as the department's coordinator, where that's our grants for scheduling for DWI and extra traffic enforcement. On top of that, Brenton worked many overnights guarding our community and protecting our community, and during his 3 years has made a great contribution. So with that, I'd like to present him with the city, since the mayor is not here, a certificate of appreciation for his contribution to our public safety.
Thank you. Keep going, Chief.
Are you okay with that,
Yeah.
Mayor? Pro Tem?
Good.
Yeah, it does. All right, if I could ask Officer Stephen Senden to come up here. So before we swear him in, my pleasure is to embarrass our new hires for a little bit and tell a little stories, or some stories about them. This one is a first for me in my over 4 years as chief here. I've actually known this officer since he was actually about this tall. Stephen Senden grew up in my neighborhood, or actually I grew up in my neighborhood. I think he was there first. But the Senden family, who are here today, and it's a pleasure to be in front of, raised Stephen in the same neighborhood as mine. He's just, which makes me feel old, 1 year older than my oldest son. And his mother, Julie Senden, back here, was actually my son's 4th grade teacher at Chaska Elementary. So I've known Stephen for a long time, and Stephen actually joined the Chaska Police Department Explorer Unit, where I was a police sergeant before coming here. So I actually got to see him in uniform at about 14 years old, volunteering his time for our community of Chaska as an explorer. And that program, if you're not familiar, it's a volunteer program affiliated with Scouting of America, and it teaches youth about a profession. There's scouting, there's aircraft pilot explorers, there's fire department explorers. So Stephen volunteered for our community at then. He knew he wanted to be a police officer. And then he was in that program for about 4 years, giving his time at all the community events and riding along with us. I had the pleasure of having him do patrol assist with me, and it was an honor. And then went to college, Mankato, correct?
Correct.
Which is my alma mater. So again, good decision-making here. And studied law enforcement for 4 years, and then went to skills in Alexandria Tech. And then before we could get our hooks in him, he went to the Carver County Sheriff's Department as a patrol deputy, and then into the Carver County Sheriff's Department as a jail deputy. And when we were looking for an officer, I actually reached out to Stephen, and it took about 6 months of constant calling, having him ride along with me, come to the police department. I got him to apply for us, and of course, he got hired right away. So Stephen's been with us. He is now on his own. He's passed field training. And today, we're going to swear him in for the oath of office. So I'm very excited. He is an officer that will contribute so much to this community over his career. His life, much of it has been dedicated to public service, so I'm excited that he's going to be doing it for our community. So with that, we'll do the oath of office. And are you okay if I do it here and then we'll take pictures after? All right. So, Stephen, if you'd raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Stephen Senden,
I, Stephen Senden,
do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution,
do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution,
laws and ordinances,
laws and ordinances,
and faithfully perform my duties as police officer.
and faithfully perform my duties as a police officer.
Never betray my badge or the public trust.
Never betray my badge or public trust.
Have the courage to
Have the courage to
and will hold myself and others accountable.
and will hold myself and others accountable.
Promote the vision and mission of the department.
Promote the vision and
Mission of the department. Provide fair and impartial law enforcement.
provide fair and impartial law enforcement.
Practice community values-based policing.
Practice community values-based policing.
Serve with pride, integrity, and excellence.
Serve with pride, integrity, and excellence.
And provide quality service to the best of my ability.
And provide quality service to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. This is the first to do 2 of these in one day, which is awesome. So, I'd like Officer Zachary Batolf to step up here. I'd like to introduce you to Zachary Batolf. I haven't known him as long. Let's just be fair to say that. But also a unique mission to become a police officer here. I've actually never had somebody interview me before to see if they wanted to work for me. So that was something new. So Zach cold called and literally reached out, left me a voicemail and said, in essence, hey, I hear you're hiring an officer. I'd like to come and take a look at your police department and see if I'd be a good fit. And I took that to mean, let's see if I'd want to work with you. So Zach came and spent 2 hours with me, got a tour of the police department, and then we sat in my office and I told him about our department, our vision, our mission that we'll mention here. And really, it was a chance to brag about our community. You know, more and more new officers as we're finding out. You know, when I started, even hate to say this, 30 years ago, it was a different culture, a different time. I interviewed, and I'm not joking, the most I interviewed with was 850 candidates for one job. 850 for one. And as we know, we're not getting that now. And what we're seeing is people are actually very choosy about where they go to work. And what's so important, especially to police officers, as we've seen, is what does the community do for the officers? What type of support does the community have for the law enforcement? And I was able to brag about our community and our support and state that the biggest problem, and I can actually say that today, the Girl Scouts brought 10 packages of Girl Scout cookies to our PD today, and yeah, you saw that, and that's why it's hard to sometimes fit in our uniforms, but that really is our biggest problem in our community is is what do we do with all the food that people bring us? So it's a great community, and I was able to sell him the community. I answered probably about 25 minutes of questions he had about our department and our community, and he thanked me and went on his way. And then about 2 weeks later, we got an application from Zach, and we were able to convince him to come with us. Rigorous process, just like Stephen did to be our police officer, and he joined us. He's got approximately 1 month left in field training, and then he'll be on his own, and we can expand our shift coverage. So with that, Zach, I'd like to swear you in and give you the oath of office. Raise your right hand, please. I didn't have to raise my right hand, but I did anyways for the first one, but I won't for this one. I realize that. I'm not the one giving the oath. So, ready?
Ready.
I, Zachary Batulf,
I, Zachary Batulf,
do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution
do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution
and laws and ordinances,
and laws and ordinances,
and faithfully perform my duties as peace officer.
and faithfully perform my duties as peace officer,
Never betray my badge or the public trust.
never betraying my badge or the public trust,
Have the courage to
have the courage to,
and will hold myself and others accountable.
and will hold myself and others accountable,
Promote the vision and mission of the department.
promote the vision and
Mission of the
Mission.
department. We gotta change
of the
that.
department.
It's hard.
The next part's the hard part.
Provide fair and impartial law enforcement.
Provide fair and impartial law enforcement,
Practice community values-based policing.
practice community values-based policing,
Serve with pride,
serve with pride,
integrity, and excellence.
integrity, and excellence,
And provide quality service to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and provide quality service to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Let's see, we are on to public comment. If anybody is here, and there's still nobody online, if anybody's here for public comment for anything not on the agenda, now is the time to come up.
Let's go, let them in. They need your keys, Zach. You can lead them down there.
Not seeing anybody coming up for public comment, so we'll move on. We'll close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda, or anybody have any questions or items wish to be pulled?
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Amanda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. And then we are on to public hearings. We got two of them.
So we have two public hearings this evening. We have one for a liquor license for Quick Trip Incorporated, and we have a second one for Red Eye Enterprises doing business as Bullseye Saloon. The reason that we hold the public hearing is that it provides an opportunity for the city council and the city to receive any information that might relate to the eligibility for that licensee. But to a large degree, issuance of liquor licenses is heavily regulated, and as long as they pass the other criteria outlined in code, we don't have a basis to deny. So the first liquor license would be for Quick Trip. It would be appropriate protocol to open up the public hearing, ask to receive. Linda is participating online, so I want to give her an opportunity to provide any additional comments on each of the items. So I'll do that at this time with your permission, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Sounds good to me.
I'm just going to unmute Linda right now.
So open the public hearing at 7:22 p.m.
Linda, did you have any additional comments with regards to the Quick Trip license? Take that as a negative. So at this point, you just need to make
Are we doing separate? Do we have to? Okay.
separate. So the first, if you open the public hearing for Quick Trip, that would be the first one. And so you just need to ask politely as many times as you feel is necessary. If nobody states, you can close the hearing and move on to discussion and action.
Anybody present for the public hearing for the Quick Trip liquor license interested in speaking? Going once, going twice. Close the public hearing on the liquor license for Quick Trip.
Note the time as being 7:24.
Yeah.
3.
I'm going off the computer. 7:23.
All right.
And do we need to do the resolution now, or?
Yep, you
Okay.
take action on the item at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2344, approving a new liquor license for Quick Trip in the city of Elko, New Market.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution passes. And then we can move on to the second public hearing for the liquor license for Red Eye Enterprises doing business at Bullseye Saloon. So we'll open up that public hearing at 7:24 PM. Linda, any additional information or comments related to this liquor license? I see the square light up, so
I think that maybe she muted. Maybe she's muted on her computer or something.
She might be muted on her computer.
Maybe we can't hear you.
Raise your hand if you're trying to
She just
speak.
muted again. So, she did not advise me of anything beyond what was in the staff report to advise the council of, so we'll assume no.
okay. Anybody here would like to comment during the public hearing for the Red Eye Enterprises liquor license? Going once, going twice, seeing none. We will close the public hearing at 7:24 and looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2345.
Motion to approve Resolution 2345, approving a new liquor license for Red Eye Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Bullseye Saloon in the city of Elko, New Market.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Resolution passes. And that's all we have for public hearings, so we'll move on to general business. First item we have is the report on the 2024 downtown reconstruction project.
Yep, so. Yes.
So the council is being asked to adopt a resolution receiving reports and calling for a public hearing on the 2024 Old New Market area reconstruction project. I'll walk you through some background on the project, brief findings. We typically would expect during the public hearing, if you so approve, August 10th, and we would go through a presentation of the actual report for the public that might attend and do it at the same time. So you're gonna kind of get it twice, but this is a good preview. With my IT person.
We're getting there. There we go.
Let's just jump right to the next slide. So I'll, project overview, a little bit about project costs. We have two different ways we look at assessments for the project, one based on your assessment policy, and then another way based on what might be some limits to what's been assessed based on the actual budget, which I'll explain when we get there, and then we'll talk about next steps. So, you've seen this before. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 block project area, just south of County Road 2 and on each side of Webster. These are the oldest neighborhoods from a plat standpoint, at least in Elko County. Next slide. So the timeline, we introduced this project to you back in January of 2022. At that point, we advised we would be doing a minimum street replacement, water main and services replacement, storm sewer replacement. But at that time, there was no feasibility study cost estimate prepared. We had basically a napkin scribbling of cost when we told you we thought it would be in the $1.25 to $1.75 million range. March of 2022, we had a neighborhood project introduction. At that point, we advised them of street replacement. We also mentioned, subject to constraints in the right of way, we intended to try to include curb and gutter, which does not started having individual neighborhood meetings, so not the overall neighborhood, but basically broke the project down into 3 sections that had more similar characteristics. And the first of those was the St. Joseph and Church Street, just because they tend to be more commercial, right on the edge of transition from downtown commercial to the more residential to the south, and bigger parcels. One outcome of that meeting, they liked the layout, but wanted more sidewalk on the north side for people moving between parking lots and the bar. Then in February of 2023, we had a meeting with the West Lewis Street property owners. Those tend to be a little bigger, a little bit newer lots. We encountered some opposition to our plans for sidewalk there. I didn't get a clear statement as to the reason for that. We are supposing that basically cost and probably maintenance are the typical reasons people don't care to have sidewalk added to the neighborhood. And a lot of discussion about the extent of drainage issues, which led to some changes in our thinking of how we approach that, with not just replacing storm sewer, but probably adding some, which would be one of the factors in increasing the cost along the curb and gutter and sidewalk. That wasn't included in the issue. April of 2023, we met with folks along St. Mary and Paul Streets, largely residential, a lot of rental property there. And we encountered opposition to sidewalks. They didn't mind the sidewalks so much, but what they were afraid of is losing parking, because we had to make the streets bigger to fit the sidewalk in the streets. And they felt that at least one side parking, keeping that was very important because of the overnight parking for tenants. There was also concern about reduction in driveway lengths. So when they park in front of their garage, if we put a sidewalk, cuts off how much we may have to park. And then we again talked about public and private drainage issues. There was some suggestion to a wetland be drained back to historical levels. Just for council's information, we follow the law, and what allows is not to drain wetlands. We have to basically preserve them as best we can determine what their historical condition was. And that's what we did. And then we held finally one more full neighborhood open house, just to present what we found for feasibility for assessments and the special benefit test. We talked about a 26-foot street, so we made some changes to the layout based on all those meetings. Kept the streets a little bit wider than we were planning. I was looking at 22 and 26 feet, like we're proposing. That does allow parking on one side, but it ain't no freeway. It's going to be a little pinchy, which is deliberate. For one thing, we don't have a lot of room in those rights of way, but also tends to reduce speeds. And that seemed to be received favorably. We presented sidewalks only on St. Joseph, William, and Church Streets, where we have either a little more right of way or something we're trying to connect. There was a mixed response. The people that no longer had sidewalk proposed on theirs were delighted. Others maybe not so much, but understood why we were proposing the sidewalk. And then we went through assessments computed by the policy versus assessments that would be limited based on the special benefit test. In advance. Our schedule would be feasibility study and design the rest of this year, going through the hearing in August, and then design in the fall. Bid it late in 2023 to hopefully capture bidders that are eager to have their schedule filled for 2024, and then construction in spring and summer 2024. We're looking at probably combining this for bidding with the 2024 mill and overlay. Both of them have a fair amount of pavement. That one might end up with a paving company as the general contractor, but we think it may help reduce prices on this project by moving them up.
You want me to advance, Rich?
Yeah, I think we can move on from that. Project costs and funding, probably the main points. $2.2 million
Rich, do you know right off the top of your head what the difference between the special assessments based on the test of benefit versus,
I think I
Without.
have it in here.
okay,
I wanna push on. So, this is boring, but I wanted to walk you through a little bit the highlights of your special assessment policy, which I tried to follow to the letter and first determine what they would normally be following your assessment policy. So the construction and the overhead are assessed to benefiting properties in proportion to the benefit. The work does not have to be adjacent to the property to be considered a benefit. So a sidewalk 2 blocks away could benefit you, a storm sewer 3 blocks away could benefit you. Because it's draining your water, it's carrying your feet if you happen to go through the neighborhood. The costs are broken down in this estimates I did by the various elements so that I can apply them to the policy as the policy describes. So curb and gutter is separated from the pavement, separated from sidewalk, separated from storm sewer and so forth. New elements, things that are not currently out there, that don't exist in the project, like in this case, curb and gutter, by policy are to be assessed 100% to property owners. But if it's a replacement element, something that's already there, it's 60/40, city pays 60%, owner pays 40%. I did follow that when I calculated the first round of assessments. And then some things are by the front foot, some things are by area, and some things are by each or actual cost. So based on your policy, residential parcel, the average, the range of assessments was 11, just under 12,000, almost 50,000. The average was $20,000 per house. The commercial institutional range was quite a bit bigger because the parcel sizes are different. There's some slivers out there, and there's some fairly good sized parcels. You can see the numbers up there. Then, because by statute, the city, if challenged, has to keep the assessments in proportion to the increase in value to the project. So, a project's worth 100, or a house is worth $100 today, and we go by and do a project, and then it's worth 110, you can assess $10. Is how it works. So this special benefit test set out to determine what the expected typical increase in value of a single-family home in this neighborhood would be after our project based on what we were proposing to do. And they do a pretty hefty study that you provided if you want to read it, but it's pages and pages and pages of comparisons of other projects from other communities with adjustments for location, timing, and magnitude. But the bottom line is they came back and said, we think the increase to a single-family house from this project is going to be $8,500. We are recommending that you assess $8,500 per house with adjustments for commercial and industrial.
Then we're eating the 3
You
to
have to eat the rest.
40,000.
If you assess more, you could do that. If you are challenged, you have a very defensible number at 8,500. Going above that might get tougher to try and convince a judge that, yes, we think the value's going to go up more.
the doing a study such as this is a double-edged sword. You want to do it to make sure that you are doing the right thing, you're compliant with the law, and that you have a defense against what you're going to defend. But it also puts you in a box because you are essentially creating the argument for somebody that that is the limit of what you can be assessed, so.
Yeah, I want to be careful about, there's nuances about, whether we're challenged and who's responsible, the burden of proof. Andrea can take that up. We did this study, we found these numbers, we are recommending you use those because that's the deck of cap. We can go to the next slide. In collecting assessments and payment, you have to follow due process. That requires
like to insert here. So this is the statutory process. You'll note that that the opportunity for the public to provide input before you actually authorize the project to move forward is really one meeting. You'd get a mailed notice saying, here's the improvement hearing. And you'll note the actual number of meetings that we've held already with just letting them know that the project was out there, the individual neighborhood meetings, the wrap-up meeting to give them the information that we're presenting you ahead of time. Those are all extras, and that is basically implementation of our community-oriented government philosophy of community involvement. So I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, each person got at least 3 chances to attend the meeting for information and ask questions. So, where are we here? I think I've kind of covered this. This is a little more detailed schedule. Tonight we'd be ordering the improvement hearing. August 10th we'd be holding it that same night if everything is acceptable to the council. Or the improvement, which basically means get these plans and specs put together and bring it back to us for approval and advertise it for bids. Then I'll leave the rest of the schedule. Just read it. That's all I have for you.
So maybe back to, I don't know if you were gonna ask the question, but what's the difference between the special assessment amount based on the policy versus the 8,500?
So the average was 20,000 based on your policy, 8,500 based on the special benefit test analysis. So
But in that one grid that it said, here's the city's portion, here's the 400 and whatever.
those included based on the special benefit test, the lower
Not
assessment,
the-
not the.
Yep.
So ballpark, what would be the total number, Rich, between the policy-based
0.2 minus 460,
That's 1.75.
something like that.
And historically, what have we followed, or, I mean, have we done these studies
We have
for,
not.
okay.
So,
Well, we also have done a reconstruction project since downtown Newmarket back in 2008.
and there was a lot, because that was a county road, the county road covered basically what was between the fog lines, and the assessments there were more related to sidewalk and utilities that were the accessible portion of utilities. So we really don't have a precedence within the community.
In my company, we're seeing this more and more and more because appeals can drag things out and councils can make decisions thinking that it's going to be 2.5 times as much in assessments as it may actually be. And so to sweep the leg on that, a lot of communities are doing these to try and get it written on what's going to be an acceptable assessment.
Well, and in this portion of the community, the housing, the property values are lower than in the rest of the community. In other neighborhoods, the change in value would be different than it is in this portion of the community, primarily due to the age of the housing.
Interestingly, she addresses that in the studies. There's actually more benefit to a low-value house than to a large one, if I'm paraphrasing. I mean, again, you can read it yourself, but I thought you would expect a very expensive house to sustain the larger one, but the value doesn't go up much. Anyway, that's what I have for you. If you have other questions, I'd be happy to take a crack at it.
Do we set a precedence by now we're gonna be doing these studies for every flipping one moving forward?
No, I think it depends on the nature of the project. So we obviously didn't do it with regards to pavement rehab project because the dollars related to the accessible portion of the improvement is substantially less and reasonably would increase the value of the property by that amount. In this case, when you're doing a full reconstruction, the accessible portion of the cost of the project is much more substantial, and going into it again, when you're looking at homes that at the time that we did that study, were selling in the low 200s, upper 100,000s, and you're looking at assessments that could be in that $20,000 range as a percentage of the value of the home and the likelihood of that kind of an increase, it was less likely that the home would necessarily be able to absorb that assessment under the statutory test. And so that's why we completed this study and then yielded those results. So I think it's a project by project judgment.
We are, I mean, there are things, cost cutting, obviously, an option, take out curb and gutter, don't put any sidewalk, you know, what else can we cut? We went with the city standard the best we could. We can't fit a full 28-foot street with a sidewalk in those narrow rights of way, but we can put 26 with curb and gutter. We think those streets tend to be not only more durable, because the pavement edge is protected, drainage is improved, the streets look better, and I think they're safer because of not just the width, but that barrier on the sides tends to have an impact on speed.
Did I see, St. Mary Street is the one that goes to Wagner Park, correct?
Correct.
And they did not want a sidewalk?
That's not part of the project.
That's a gap,
No.
there's a gap in there, but aside of there's the St. Mary was
It's
written.
one of the reasons we did not include one on West Lewis, which does have more room. There's room for sidewalks, but it doesn't connect to anything on either end. So you follow that to St. Mary, and you're back on the street, which is probably busier than West Lewis. So given that and opposition, but primarily the fact that it just doesn't connect, we decided to.
Can you go back to that map?
Yeah, the very first one. I was gonna say, go back to it and see, this is what $2.2 million costs.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd rely on that map for features. It was intended just to show the extents of the project.
This is St. Mary Street right here. This is Webster.
Yeah,
Okay.
east of St. Mary,
So-
asphalt.
Yeah, so I'm thinking,
No sidewalk, there's.
I guess I can't make it bigger. I'm blind. Remove my glasses. This is, thank you. Where's
It was
the
just a
park?
delayed reaction, Kate.
The park is to the left side, off the left side of the screen.
Wagner Park.
Is over here.
Why am I so confused?
So Wagner
If you were to
Park,
zoom out, you can see double wide up here.
Oh, this is north. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at it thinking this is two down there. Yep, you're fine. Ignore me. I
Alright,
was just
so-
wondering why they didn't want to do a
Is this,
sidewalk.
is the green? Oh, that's probably the.
That's probably just water main. Actually, this does show where we're planning to put sidewalk, kind of in a brown color, so north and south on West Lewis, not West Lewis, on
Yeah, William.
Williams.
Yeah.
And up along St. Joseph, and then also on the east side of Church Street, because we have a trail down there that we think it makes sense to connect downtown to that trail. Tom, if you want to pan over a little more left.
All right, so any more questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 23-46. And that's really just to set the hearing for August 10th, correct?
correct, at which time Rich would present the feasibility
Yeah.
study and would go over in more detail, project scope, assessments, that type of stuff.
Motion to approve Resolution 2346, receiving feasibility report and calling hearing on improvement.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Moving on to item B of general business, authorizing hire of a police officer.
So these were the two items that you had alluded to during the work session, Josh. They're both highly related, and so as we're talking through one, I think it's okay to get into the other one. Would you prefer that I go through both first before you get into the discussion because of that? Or would you rather handle them piecemeal from a presentation standpoint?
No, I think it makes sense to combine them.
Okay, so give me one
Wish I
second.
would've gotten that heads up when I read it, because then I would've, oh, it's a rookie. I'm like, holy crap, we're saving money.
So, right now, the projected budget for 2024 had an additional patrol officer position to help continue to move us towards a 24/7 coverage schedule. We're currently scheduled for it, but we still have gaps, as you know, if we have any vacancies, sickness, training, court, and so on. We aren't always able to control the schedule. It also means that our officers have to move their schedules all over the place. That has an impact on quality of life for your officers. It also impacts how easily they're able to make themselves available. Imagine if you go into your job and it's like, oh, next week I need you to come in at 4 hours earlier. Next time I need you to stay 4 hours later, and this happens on a regular basis. So it's hard for us to achieve full coverage with our current staffing for a lot of practical reasons. This would move us towards a department where we would be able to provide coverage the vast majority of the time and start giving us flexibility to be able to cover those gaps when we have vacation, sick, court, training, etc. But it still doesn't quite get us there. It's just moving us in the right direction. Early in the year, we had the vacancies. Officer Karkuf had moved on, as had Officer Hodling, and so we had some vacancies earlier in the year. So if you take a look at the police department budget and you also take a look at the overall general fund budget, there does appear to be at this point in the year capacity to be able to hire that officer early if you wanted to do it. In fact, we could hire him today, but realistically there's a hiring process. But we would be able to easily fund that position before the beginning of next year. Now, obviously, if you authorized it, you would be creating a fixed point within next year's budget. That would no longer be a discretionary item. You have the person on board. But we are asking the council to consider it. So there would be no impact to this budget, and if you're already considering it for next year's budget. In addition to that, the legislature this last session authorized what they called public safety aid. And these were dollars that could be used within public safety for recruitment and retention of personnel, purchase of equipment, et cetera, programs for well-being of police officers and whatnot. Every community that has a police department was allocated these dollars, and we are set to receive a little over $215,000. Based on the statute or the legislation, there's no time frame for the spending of the dollars. While there are parameters on how you use it, we would recommend that we use it for hiring of additional police officers. The recommendation that we presented to the council was that we would use those dollars to accelerate the hire of an additional officer in addition to the one that was planned for 2024. In a sense, we would hire 2 officers in 2024. The way that we would use the dollars is that we would use it to buy down the cost of both officers, so that we would essentially be paying, and we would step in the use of those dollars in over 2024 and 2025. So we'd get 2 officers for 2/3 of the price of 1 officer in 2024, 2 officers for 2/3, for 1 1/3 cost of an officer for the 2 officers, and then we'd be picking up the full cost in 2026. So it'd be basically leveraged in equal parts, roughly thirds. What that does is that would put us in 2024 in a position where we would be at that very, very, very close to 24/7, 365 coverage. It would address overlap between shifts, provide greater partnership with officers on board for officer safety. That type of flexibility not only provides us better coverage, but it also provides higher degree of morale within the department, which also leads to recruitment and retention. So that's the recommendation. So they're both related. The first question is, do you want to hire the officer for 2024? Again, creates fixed point in budget. And if you do, then do you want to hire how do you want to use those public safety dollars? And to anticipate the question, you could use those public safety dollars entirely on the officer, the 2024 officer, if you wanted to. But our recommendation is to use it to elevate the level of service substantially from where we're at and get us up to a plateau where we would not anticipate hiring an additional officer then till maybe somewhere in the 2028 timeframe, unless growth and call load in the community dictated otherwise.
Chief, any comments, additional pieces to add?
Just that, you saw the two officers that left were here. They loved the department, they liked our community, but a big thing for them was just as Tom said, working by themselves all the time, or quite a bit, and then constantly having their schedule juggled around. Those were named, and when we interviewed them as their major factors. It wasn't money, that was a factor, but that wasn't the major factor. And you can see that they still care about our community, they still like the other officers that were here, but that was a big thing for them. This public safety aid, the intent of the legislature when we were lobbying for it as Chiefs of Police Association was to make the quality of life of our officers better that are working, and then keep them at our departments, and then attract new officers. So the public safety aid, if we use it in this manner, directly correlates to what the legislature wanted it for, which was to improve the lives of our officers and then attract new officers because of that. So it is very big. If you notice, I don't come to the meetings and say how short-staffed we are or how bad it is, but it's hard. I'm not a complainer, I don't complain, but today, this is hour 15 that I've been here, because I've been starting work at 5 a.m. because I want the coverage for the community, and I don't want to place a burden on our officers that are new or haven't been here as long. So it does have an effect, a real effect on the officers, increasing. I mean, we lost 33% of our officers, so we normally had 6, we were working with 4. So it's, that burden is pushed to the 4 that are still here, and our part-timer. So this directly affects that, and going from 6 now to 8 is a 25% increase really in our staffing that will ease the burden on the officers once they get trained in. And we're gonna have bumps in the road, we're gonna have, I've been in this business a long time, we're gonna have pregnancy leave, we're gonna have maternity leave, we're gonna have officers injured as they get older. I've seen it, and this helps us weather those bumps. And I mean, for us losing 33% compared to Savage, who's suffered the same things, but they lose too, they go about their business. Nothing's really affected so much. So this would go a long way for our officers, for our staff, for our community. I mean, we have a chance to get 2026 service, 2028 service, through 2028 service now, and save the taxpayer a ton of money doing that. So my opinion is, when we got these funds granted to us, this was my plan. I wasn't looking for bonuses. None of the officers wanted cash bonuses, which this was for as well, to keep the officers and give them retention bonuses. None of them wanted that. When we discussed this and I came up with this plan, it was to get more coverage, and really, it helps the officers, but it really helps the community. We'll have officers in our community so much more. So I think this is the ideal plan. And then my funding idea was nowhere near as smart as Tom's, and I gotta give credit, the way he metered the money out gives the best benefit for the longest period of time to the community too, in the form of easing the taxpayer burden. So it was an incredible way to finance it, but I think it's just a wonderful plan, and I hope you see it as a benefit to the community to move forward with it.
I like it. I like it just the way they have it laid out. I would say approve the hire for this year, and do what the staff is recommending for 2024, 2025, and 2026.
And then maybe we'll get another grant to help us the next session.
Well, this is I was the first of our small town chiefs and our chief board to we're the first that we know with a solid plan. Jordan, Belplain, New Prague, everybody in the state, all the departments got this money. It was $300 million. We're the first to jump on this and use it as a COPS-style grant, a community-oriented policing system grant. I mean, that's what COPS was when I got hired in the 90s. Bill Clinton hired 100,000 cops in the 90s when the crime was so high. That drove down the crime rate through the late 90s, the early 2000s, until just recently it started going up again. This is the same, this is based on that grant, that you put more boots on the ground or you have more officers there to protect your communities, your crime will go down. And so we were the first to get this going, first to jump on it. Credit Tom, credit Kelly, working on the budget. We're the first to act on this. I don't know any of the communities in Scott or Carver County that have said, this is where the money's going.
And it's also, I mean, yeah, it's increasing the protection of our community, but it's also increasing the employee happiness, which is a big factor because you don't want people to leave because they don't like it here and they can go work with somebody else and not just be by themselves all day.
And they don't complain. I mean, our officers don't complain. They're very happy to come to work. I love the crew we just got. But when I relay it to other people, you know, Renee comes at 8 o'clock every day. If about 8 times a month I said, show up at 2. Well, what do you mean? No, show up at 2 o'clock in the morning because your partner is called in sick and you need to. That's what they're doing all the time. And they were supposed to be here at one time and they were coming 4 hours in early. Or then it's like, oh, no, this person's off, you got a shift. And so you're constantly changing when you're supposed to be at work. And people are like, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. Well, I wish we could too, but, and some of that is you have to do that. If you get a call, you stay late, but it was built into our system because we want to give our officers time off, we want to get time with their families. So when I put it in those terms that we're trying to reduce that type of work schedule where literally next week you find out, oh, I gotta be in 4 hours early, so now I gotta find daycare for my kids, or I can't go to this program that I was gonna, I can't coach this stuff. It's the little things that keep, you know, people around, and that was a big part of why 2 left, and we wanna learn from that and try to get it so that doesn't happen so much.
So I have another quick question for you. In 2024, 2025, or 2026, where will we be able to be staffed to the level where in the Friday nights, Saturday nights, that we'll be able to have 2 officers on? Do you force immediately?
Yep, when we get back, we, on the day shift, us older officers, myself, I work without a partner 3 out of the 5 days. We're pushing that to the evening, to the weekend hours, where our call load and when the officer safety concerns are the most. When you have a fight, and, you know, it's 10, 15 minutes for backup to get there from the county. We're designing the schedule to maximize, as Tom said, that overlap where that double coverage is. All of you authorized the last growth hire that got us to that more double coverage. So these 2 officers would make 2 4-person teams that will give a lot of overlap. And then even depending upon the schedule, we're still designing it based on who we get and when. 10 or 12 hours, that will give some days where we'll have triple coverage, which allows us to do so much more community engagement, traffic details, warrant details. Boy, having 3 officers on when an Elko race and the Quick Trip's open and the Traders Mark is going would be wonderful.
And
have 3 officers on, so.
And so if you think about if you have 1 officer on, if they have to do any training, paperwork, investigations, those types of things, it takes them off the road. Where if you have 2 or 3 officers, you can still have somebody on the road, and then somebody else can be doing some of those other activities. So it provides better, not just officers in town, but better coverage on the road.
And presence and visual presence. I mean, just people seeing us more and like Tom said, there goes a lot of paperwork with it, and having knowing one person is out there and another person can be at the office typing, you still have community presence, so.
And is there any risk or, I mean, I heard you say, maybe one of you say that, you know, we can use it as long as we want. Now that's assuming, do we have that money in hand that's sitting in an account in Elko New Market that's safe so that the legislature doesn't take it
I
back?
believe.
I just heard, actually, Tom and I haven't connected, I just heard today that the latest the money should be in the bank is December. But it could be as early, they're shooting, this legislature said, the statute said, mentioned September to be divvied out, so to speak, by our county boards or county.
So we'll have it in hand, we'll have it in our envelope, sitting there on the shelf essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's Thursday, July 13th. If you authorize this, I'm gonna put an ad in on Monday when Linda gets back. And it'll take 3 to 4 months to even get somebody through that door. So that's if we can find people. If we can, that's a whole nother issue. But you authorizing it, it's still September, October before we have someone in a uniform and training. And then it's October, November, December to get them trained where they have an impact. If we can get 2 right away, you're looking at December at the earliest, somebody could be working on their own, and then January or February. So remember there's that 4 or 5 month delay from when you give us the blessing. So the money, we wouldn't put anybody on until we had the money in hand. We can identify them, we can background them, we can get them right up to the point where they're signing on the dotted line. If we don't have that money, there's no risk. The 2020, well, Tom can interject it. But.
Yeah, so this would be so the plan would be, if the council authorized the additional officer, we'd make the posting right away. While we're going through that process, if there's more than one officer out of that pool that is a good fit for us and would be a good officer, we would earmark them. If the council has authorized the use of the dollars to provide for the second officer, what we would do is we would wait till we have the money in hand, and if at that point since we would not be bringing on the first officer till October, there would be enough dollars there to actually hire the second officer before the end of the year, if we have the money in hand, if we can find somebody. And you guys know that we've gone out over 6 months or more, multiple hiring process, and not necessarily found somebody. So we would come back at that time and specifically authorize the hire of the second officer before 2024. We would assume it in the development of the 2024 budget, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think where I was getting at too is, we don't want to have money sitting there that we can use that we don't use or other cities don't use, and then the legislature comes back next year, the next session, the one in 2026 or whatever, or 2025, and say, we want that money back. Those that you didn't spend it, too bad, you missed your opportunity. We don't see that as a risk. Because my brain initially went to, well, why wouldn't we use that to maybe buy down one officer, and now we could, or buy down more of the police department costs and reallocate some funds elsewhere from the general fund to pay for other things like CCEC or other things like that. So that's where my brain went initially, but I mean, knowing all the development.
So to your,
It does allow you to.
yeah, so to the first point, the statute doesn't currently have any time frame associated with spending it. We will be putting in its own little fund and tracking it separately in case after the fact anybody comes back and says, how did you spend the money? So we've got a very clear accounting trail on how we used it. Too, if the legislature actually says anything that hasn't been spent by the end of the year, guess what? We're just gonna accelerate how we spend it to the benefit of that budget year. If we have to, it will do whatever we can so we don't lose.
Right, so if we can't find somebody, we can't find that second person, we can reallocate it to, maybe we determine that a bonus would be good, or, paying down current expenses so that we
Correct.
can put it
Yes.
into an additional planner or something because of development is skyrocketing, we can readjust.
Yes, to an eligible expense to then create capacity someplace else, exactly. Just right now,
This has to be for that public safety aid. You could, if that emergency came up and we had to do it, we have plenty of capital costs in the public safety that we could fund, that would free up money for the ECEC and the other things like that. If that was an emergency thing, it's just, it would kind of not be what it was intended for, but if they tried to claw it back, yeah, there wouldn't be any left.
No, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it goes back to 2016, 2015, whenever we started adding officers to get out in front of things and be proactive in front of the growth. I mean, with Quick Trip and other potential development, more housing, more everything.
Well, Quick Trip is gonna be open before we get our, well, at the exact same time as we get full staffed again, and that's a 24-hour facility. I'm anxious about that, let's say that. So I'm glad that timing, we're getting back to at least full staff. That's where a lot of our resources are gonna go, is the Quick Trip and development, and when the Quick Trip and racetrack are up and running at the same time for those months or so. Yeah, would allow us a lot more flexibility for that.
So you just needed direction tonight, correct? Or
No motion or anything?
It would be better, I think, if the direction was in the form of a motion, well, we need a motion for authorizing the hire of the officer. So,
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Amanda. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay, passes.
and then it's direction, but would be in the form of the motion that the council would intend to use the public safety aid dollars in the method recommended by staff. You can always change your minds as we move down the road, but it would be clear for purposes of the budget, that's how you want to do it, and then we'll incorporate those assumptions into the budget development.
So I was gonna say, with the asterisks of, we can adjust if necessary, based on all the things we talked about.
all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. Motion to approve the use of the public safety aid in the manner described in the packet, with discretion to change in the future.
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Is that a good enough
Right.
motion, right?
Is that clear? And
Is that clear?
Okay.
What? That's clear, okay.
What we'll do is in the minutes, we'll make sure that it's clearly noted that while that's the direction, the council reserves the right to adjust that in the future.
Yay.
all right, now we are on to reports. Administration. Is this the policy one?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, a simple yes or no question, based on all of the voting and ranking that I received from the council related to priority policy discussion issues. I provided the council with the results of that. I'm simply looking for affirmation that that is the final list and that is the relative priority that the council is assigning to those items.
Yep.
The only thing I would add is, there was a statement somewhere about the prioritization doesn't necessarily dictate that the order in which, however, I would assume that the weight of the priorities would go in such a way unless there's more research needed or whatever, but.
The prioritization goes to the level of emphasis, but the reality is something might be simple to be brought forward
Yeah.
or might come up through natural process before maybe a larger, more complicated item is ready for council discussion. I just want to make clear that,
You don't want to put yourself in a box.
yeah.
I understand. But it was clear that developing community engagement was number one with a bullet, and yeah. So CCEC, let's go step up, and and we're gonna have a workshop about that too. Kind of what we're. Well, see, I lumped together the role of city government, community, and civic events with development community engagement.
Gotcha.
I see them as two very similar things.
Yep.
But, we don't obviously need to get in the weeds, but like social media engagement, just engagement with the community in general, all that stuff, I think, falls in that bucket, so.
Mhm.
And potentially, we'll get to workshops, but different positions that could do that, or contracting out potential work to help with that engagement, so.
So that's a yes, I think.
Yeah.
In a long roundabout way.
Council member candidate selection process.
So, at the end of the day, we received 3 applications. The council had waited to hold off with kind of determining how we were gonna handle the interview process based on the number of applications we received. Getting 12 applications is very different from getting 3. Based on past history, the council has typically scheduled interviews prior to regular council meetings on a council night when all the council people were going to be here. I know Councilmember Novak is gonna be out of town on the 27th, which would then push, if we're using that philosophy, push it to the August 10th meeting. So I'd be asking if everybody is available. Unfortunately, Joe's not here tonight to be able to answer, but we could do it tentatively pending availability of the mayor confirming that he could be there.
Unless we think we need to do it any sooner, any big things that we need, more people in seats to take votes and things like that, that we would wanna rush it and not worry as much about a full council, or do it on a special other time.
Special meeting, or?
That would be up to you. I'm not anticipating any items that are coming up that require like a supermajority vote or anything like
I
that.
think actually ordering the improvements for, on the 10th, because it was a
That's a good point.
council-initiated project, requires 4, yeah.
That would be 4/5 of the sitting council,
Yes, but it would be of the council that's present. So it'd be
which would still be 4, so it'd require unanimous vote if it's still just 4 council members. So I don't know if there's anything that we can't do. There might be things that might be more complicated, and that would be the only one. And I'll admit I hadn't thought about that, but
Okay.
if you wanna hold a special meeting, that's great too. It's really up to the council.
No, I mean, I think this gives the applicants time to schedule it as well, and we respect their summer, whatever that they have going on, and we let them know. So then are we looking to do it earlier too? Start it at 5:30, or?
Unless we don't have a work session that evening, then it wouldn't necessarily have to be that but if it's a standard work session followed by business evening, we're probably gonna go at 5. I think if you figure you have, maybe even earlier if we can do it. In my experience, the interviews take 20 minutes at least. If the council's has done a more thorough, lengthier interview, 20 to 30 minutes is not uncommon. So that would put you what we could also do is we could also shift the start times for the work session and the council meeting. So we could maybe do a 5 o'clock start, move the work session back to like 6:30, and then move the start of the business meeting back to 7:30.
That works for me.
And
I think the resolution
For the
has
public
set a
hearing?
time for the public hearing,
on the 10th?
although I'm okay with moving it if Andrea is.
Well, here, let's look.
I don't remember, but typically I'm always trying to.
7:15.
The council could make a motion to amend the resolution to change the time from 7:15 to 7:30, which is basically the beginning of the meeting, would be the beginning of the meeting.
Do we have to have do we have to have anything else during that work session, or can we just say we're not going to? I mean,
Typically in August, our work sessions are dominated by budget-related items, so that might be when we bring back the first draft of the line item budget for council review. Some of that will depend on whether or not we have all the information to do that at that time, and how complex of a discussion we think the council might end up needing to have related to the budget when we get closer to that point. There have been times in the past where we didn't do budget the first meeting in August, and we handled it the second meeting in August and the first meeting in September.
well, it sounds like we're getting very complicated. Do we need to make a motion to move the public hearing now, or would you recommend we?
I think if we make the motion up to the public hearing now, it gives us the option to be able to do it, and it doesn't hurt us if it's scheduled a little bit later in the evening. Is that correct? So,
Somebody want to make an amendment?
So do
to
we
it?
want to move it to 7:30?
I think 7:30 would be better.
Okay. So then, would it just be a motion to amend resolution 2346 to the August 10th meeting, the public hearing starting at 7:30?
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Kate. All in favor? say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's been changed. Or that motion passes, that's been changed, and then you're good to go then?
Yep.
Good.
Help me remember before I send those notices.
You better write it down in your phone.
When do you have to send them, Rich?
Soon.
Tomorrow, probably.
Okay, then we're on to Public Works. There was the report in there. Anything else to add?
We still have.
We just finished the council member candidate selection process. Now we're on to Public
Oh,
Works.
yep, sorry.
Oh, you're
Well,
good.
on the council member candidate selection process, past practice has been for the mayor and acting mayor to review the question set. That I usually take the one from the last time, roll it forward, make any reasonable tweaks to it, and then basically get a blessing from the mayor and the acting mayor for purposes of the interview. Is that adequate?
Yes.
And then just remind me too, those interviews, are they open to the public, or how does that work?
it
That's
is.
all open, everything's open, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think in the past, it's been encouraged to not attend if you are a candidate, to not attend the other people's
Yeah.
interview, but you can if you so desire.
It was, it's frowned upon. We can't prohibit the person from doing it, but out of fairness, we usually have them in the green room up in meeting room A, so.
So back to the Public Works, anything in addition to the report?
Nope.
Police Department report?
I think we've taken enough of your time today. We can be good with that. Thank you, by the way, for everything. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Engineering? Community Development? Nothing?
Nothing?
Let's go home. Just kidding.
Parks, anything other than the updates that were included in the minutes?
Just that our Thursday night family fun nights in the park have been highly successful this summer. We've had huge turnouts. And also, this afternoon, we determined that we were gonna be canceling the last one of the season, which would be on the 27th. The entertainment, had a conflict and won't be able to attend. We are already doing more this summer than we have in past years because we canceled the winter family fun nights. So we use those resources to get us a couple extra nights this summer. So we're not shorting the community, so to speak, but we just don't have any.
Is that July 27th?
Yes, yep.
CCEC,
We meet next week, so I don't have anything for now.
okay.
Recap or no?
You want me to recap Fire Rescue Days?
You guys probably haven't even talked about
We
it
haven't
yet.
met since Fire Rescue Days
Okay, never mind.
happened.
Sorry, I just-
Or wait, have we? No,
I don't know.
no.
So be
June
prepared to come back at the next meeting with a recap and your plans for next Fire Rescue Day.
Yeah.
For next Fire Rescue Days.
Mhm.
Okay,
I
yeah, I'll
still
get right on
have
that.
it
All
now.
right.
I'll send you the list now.
Other committee reports, scale? Nothing for either?
Nope.
Okay. I-35, oh,
Scale typically gets, meetings are typically canceled in July, so.
I-35 was also canceled. Any discussion by council?
Actually, may I interject just one more thing, real quick, 1 minute? I don't know if you've noticed, the Speedwagon's been out a lot more lately. Public Works had a desire to get rid of that task, so the police department has taken it on ourselves. So we're actually putting it out, charging it, handling it, and getting it out to the streets. We have 10 spots throughout the city where we get our most complaints. We are rotating them through 2-3 days. Sometimes 4 days in a row in the same spot. It's good to have that there. So we are gonna be doing that all the way through probably when it starts to snow. So we've taken that on as well, and we'll get it out more consistently. If you guys see someplace you want it, let us know. Email us and we'll get it out there.
Awesome.
So I thought about something too. I mean, Night to Unite is coming up. Is there anything that we kind of coordinate, or is that all kind of work behind the scenes, or?
Emails forthcoming. I've been updating council members individually as I've met with them that it's on Tuesday, August 1st. And we would, similar format, we'd be asking those council members that want to participate, one, to find out if we need to post it, and then to basically assign you to a public safety group that'll be moving to parties around the city.
And hypothetically, if somebody got voluntold in their neighborhood that they're gonna maybe host it, or, do their neighborhood's portion of it, do we have to do anything to?
Yep.
Like, who do we communicate
Notify
with, and-
Stephanie.
There's
There's
a block party form on
Okay.
the website that you
Okay.
gotta get signatures from your neighbors
Yep.
Huh.
for approval to close the road.
Yep, 50% or more of the people in
Impacted, or?
road
If you
closure.
want to close, I mean, you can have it in your yard, you can have it in the
Hypothetically, think about
park.
doing it in a cul-de-sac that is kind of offset from the main road, so
Yep.
that we're not blocking anything.
Road's road, man.
Get your
But
signatures.
We'd
Yeah, just need
acknowledge it,
signatures from.
and actually, we'd acknowledge it, we'd show up, and we're partnering this year, like we did last year, Southern Valley Alliance, is any donations on their website, you can bring those donations, give them to the police, and then we'll gather them all and get them to Southern Valley. So we did that last year. The flyer is attached to the block party, or the, Night to Unite flyer that's out there, so that's their two things they're looking for, so we're partnering with them again this year as well. And last year we had, I wanna say 10, 12 parties, and the numbers are down still from COVID, but, they're edging back up, so we're
I
excited.
just found my out. They never told me about any forms I needed to fill out or things I needed to do.
But
I
Steph is
have one
incredibly
printed.
helpful with that.
Yes, Steph is very helpful.
Okay. Any other discussion? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Kate, second by Amanda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.